Welcome back, this is Vault. I hope you enjoy. We have a new fundamental upgrade for our settlements, timed orders. We unlock a challenging new pool of orders that have a time limit, but generally grant better rewards than the usual ones. This will be our last settlement before embarking on the Silver Seal. This time we have the Monastery of the Holy Flame modifier, which bans consumption control and favouring. This can be very challenging. Villagers that don't have a complex food available that they like will instead default to eating raw food, which can make stabilising food a bit more tricky. We've also heavily leaned on favouring our lower resolve species so far, to both gain reputation and prevent them from leaving during the storm. In our last game, we ended up favouring the majority fox population for almost the entire game, earning 9 reputation points from them alone. By settling on the Marshlands tile next to it, we put ourselves in range of the seal for the next time out. This will be our third marshland settlement this cycle. It's a gathering-focused biome with little fertile soil and bonuses to gathering speed per 2 gatherers. There are also giant nodes in the Forbidden Glades, with 1,000 charges and some valuable yields. This is probably the most I'd ever consider taking a caravan with 2 less villages. Without favouring, the foxes and frogs would be easier to look after, and they bring very useful embarkation goods, the planks and the porridge. I still think the 2 extra villages is more powerful though, so we'll go with this 10 villager harpy caravan. We're up to Prestige 13 now, which gives us less options when picking a cornerstone, similar to P12's reduced blueprint options. For embarkation, alongside villages and starting wood, we should bring in the cheap vegetables, which will help feed our villagers without consumption control. Once again, I think it's worth dipping into our reserve points for this modifier. 10 extra planks will help get our town off the ground at the start. This will still leave us with plenty of points for the seal. Let's get started. Our Drizzle Forest Mystery is Mushrooms After Rain, which gives us +3 to mushrooms production. So we'll be looking for mushroom nodes, but in this biome, the trees actually give us mushrooms as well. So our woodcutters will become quite good food gatherers. And we have 3 forest mysteries that activate at Hostility 1 this game. The first reduces Global Resolve by 10 for 3 minutes after discovering a glade. We also have increased travel time of trade routes. And villagers without housing have a -5 resolve penalty. And at Hostility 4, we'll have to pay wood for each villager in the settlement, and if we don't, then 2 villagers will leave. The Prestige 13 modifier reduces our cornerstone options by 2, but we can get 1 extra choice by spending Wildfire Essence. Let's quickly talk about the impact of the Monastery modifier. Without favouring, we have to do a better job of preparing for the storm. We can't get away with favouring our harpies to prevent them from leaving. However, our other 2 species are beavers and humans, which have high base resolve, so they will look after themselves. And without consumption control, we can't force our species to eat complex food that they don't prefer, which means that we will mostly only care about foods that harpies like, jerky and paste. So any raw food that doesn't go into them is not as useful. So looking at our starting glade, we have some egg nodes, which are useful in paste if we find a blueprint for it. We also have an algae pond, and let's check out our blueprints. So the only node that we can use the Forager's Camp for in this biome is the grain. Grain doesn't go into any of the harpy foods, so I think it's just a bad option to take this camp. The tavern is also not a great option, but at the very least it's +3 resolve later, and we can use it to upgrade our hearth. I think rerolling is just too expensive and takes too long, considering we have 2 blueprints behind this. These options are also quite poor. The biscuits and pies from the bakery don't feed our harpies, and we don't have inputs or outputs for the pottery. The smelter is not great either, given we don't have inputs for the copper bars, but at the very least it represents a potential tools win condition. I still think rerolling is too expensive, so it's the clear option. The Forager's Camp came back, but it's still just as bad an option as before. The Stamping Mill at the very least gives us 2-star bricks. There's nothing that I really want to spend the bricks on yet though, so we might just hold this pick. We didn't find any way to make complex food, so we'll be very much hoping for an order that we can complete early to get more blueprint options. Otherwise, we may have to find ancient tablets for extra choices, or even spend amber on rerolling. To take advantage of our Drizzle Mystery, we can use a pretty unique opener this time. We'll fully staff 4 woodcutter camps and bring in as many mushrooms as we can this season. We can't use them for harpy complex food, but they're still usable in packs of crops for trade and fishing bait. That only leaves us with one extra villager, so for the first time in ages, we won't start with a rain collector. Without a complex food building, the payoff from the drizzle water we'd gather would come a lot later in the game. Instead, our extra villager will first focus on building some houses, because with 12 woodcutters, we'll jump all the way up to hostility 3, so we need some housing to keep the harpies out of the red. We're looking for some direction, so I think it's a good idea to immediately open this Dangerous Glade. We could find an encampment or some ruins that are powerful enough to shape our game plan. Our first cornerstone is ready, and you can immediately see the impact of Prestige 13. Value-added tax is no good here. We don't have the trade goods recipe to take advantage of it. So we have a few options. We can spend Wildfire Essence for an extra choice, we could reroll, or we could decline for Amber. The Wildfire Essence would deny us a second hearth, so that's off the table for now. There is some value in declining. We're about to open a Dangerous Glade, so getting some Amber to buy a solution from a trader could be useful. We could also spend it on rerolling our bad blueprint choice. And by declining, we can save our cornerstone reroll for next year's legendary cornerstone. This glade gives us a lot of interesting options. There are some mushroom nodes, which become very powerful with the drizzle mystery. There's a clearance geyser, which we could use to power up our makeshift post. And there are some large stone nodes, which are very powerful. They solve bricks, fabric, and food, and even give us an input for our copper bars in the smelter. And there's a cache that would make it even more powerful, with the +1 to stone production, as well as a lot of complex food and some barrels. But we'll need to spend a bit of time gathering the stone before we can open it. And lastly, we have the Altar of Decay. This event seems to keep coming back to us. If we don't solve it, then Blightrot cysts will increase hostility during the storm, and we can tear it down at the cost of fuel and hostility per Wildfire Essence to get some biscuits and wine. Or we can perform the ritual by sacrificing a villager and spending some goods to get a converted Altar of Decay, which reduces hostility whenever a villager leaves. I think this Altar of Decay opens up an interesting strategy for us. Once we've done all of our drizzle woodcutting, we can call and attack our trader. In the short term, it will give us a lot of goods and be less mouths to feed, which is a big deal given we don't have consumption control. And in the long term, the Altar of Decay will give us some hostility back for the villagers that we lose. We don't need to worry about solving this altar right now. It won't trigger until after the first storm, and we don't have any rain engines going anyway. But before we lock in that strategy, let's have a look at our orders. These orders have good rewards but are quite tricky to complete. We can burn 6 cysts for villagers, food and parts, or we can sell 16 amber worth of goods and pay 10 amber for villagers, wildfire essence and tools. The wildfire essence has some extra usefulness now with our cornerstone reroll, but if we're attacking our trader, then selling 16 amber worth of goods is only possible via trade routes. That doesn't make it a bad option though. We can still use the amber we get from the trades to reroll our bad blueprints, and the purge is also not going to be realistically completable until the end of year 2. The possibility to complete amber trade a bit earlier to get us an extra blueprint is pretty desirable, so let's go for that. And now we have our first timed order. We have 9 minutes to open 3 glades and rebuild or salvage 1 ruin, and it would reward us with tools, 5 read per minute, and the tool shop blueprint. We do have the smelter blueprint already to make copper bars that could go into tools, but we would need to find a better source for those copper bars. Let's first consider our other options. We could make a bunch of trade packs to earn parts and some not very powerful perks. Or we could upgrade a geyser pump to level 1 to earn villagers, parts and bricks. I think the packs are clearly too expensive for the rewards that they give, but the geyser pump is fairly easy to do quickly and the rewards are quite solid. I think given that our first glade didn't have a ruin and the water extraction is a pretty decent option, I prefer not to go with a timed order here. Meat Lover is tricky to complete if we don't find a source of jerky. The +1 to insect production though is quite nice for our stone nodes. But Trading Post is so easy to complete with the 10 amber that we got from declining. The rewards aren't amazing, but it does let us see an extra blueprint option. So given we have to spend 20 amber to complete these orders, I'm even more convinced that we should attack our first trader, and we should try to complete all of these orders fairly quickly to unlock some more blueprints. With the trading post built, our order is complete. The rewards aren't too useful right now, but we do get another blueprint to pick. So now we can lock in the stamping mill to see our next option. The cookhouse is unfortunately another complex food building that doesn't feed our harpies, but finally it's up against what I would consider to be a good blueprint option. We can pretty easily make a lot of coats with the starting dye and the leather from the trees. The clothier also uses clearance water, which we have the geyser for, and all of our villagers use coats, which will make the storms very easy to manage. We can see our trade route offers now that we have our trading post built. We could sell off our starting barrels. This route isn't very profitable, but it might be worth it just to progress our amber trade order. And there's also this very nice deal for the biscuits that we just got from our trading post order, so we should produce some provisions before the end of the season to send these off. And of course, we can now call our trader and see what goods he brings for us to steal. Zhorg is here. Just looking at his stock, I feel like we need to change our game plan a little bit. So much of this is quite useless to us. None of the complex foods feed our harpies, and most of the raw food is unnecessary as well. And of the perks and blueprints, only this one that grants food production speed is usable. So I think Zhorg can live to tell the tale, and we'll immediately call another trader after he leaves. Instead, we'll spend some of our extra parts from the order to grab a bunch of planks, seeing as we don't have a good recipe for them. We also have a bit of a painful fabric shortage. We can't make a warehouse out here near the stone nodes and the glade event without 3 fabric, but we have no inputs for it in our warehouse. I was hoping the trader would bring it, but instead I think we have to do some very quick fishing in this algae pond to then convert it into fabric in the crude workstation. We've brought in enough packs to send off our trade routes. As it stands though, these 2 routes will only give us 8 amber, leaving us too short for the order, but Zhorg can help us with that too. We can pick up 4 more biscuits at the cost of some vegetables, which allows us to send the biscuit route at a higher multiplier, getting us the 2 extra amber we need. Now that the drizzle is over, we can start scaling back our woodcutting. We brought in 80 mushrooms from the forest mystery, so our villagers won't go hungry for quite a while. So once we've set up the new warehouse, we'll start moving our villagers over to these stone nodes. But for now, we're still waiting on the fabric. And now that Zhorg has left the town, we can once again consider if we want to call a trader. I'm not so convinced anymore that attacking the trader is the best option for our game plan. Now that we have the clothier blueprint, we have a much clearer path to earning some reputation from Resolve. So I think we'll hold off on calling our next trader until we've earned a bit more amber from trade routes. Speaking of, we have this amazing insects route to run this season, so we should get back to making the packs of provisions for it. We can instantly upgrade our new geyser pump to level 1, giving us a free worker. That also completes our water extraction order for some more villagers, and importantly, another blueprint. Finally, we found a complex food building for our harpies. 3-star jerky is great, and is the easy choice up against the herb garden when we don't even have any fertile soil. Now that we have the jerky recipe, I don't think it's as good an idea to sell off our insects in this trade route. Our only extra source of insects is the secondary yields in the stone nodes, so I'd rather maximize the amount of jerky we can produce instead of the trade profit. So now that we're not going to run our only good trade route for the season, I'm once again interested in attacking the trader. We simply won't have any goods to trade by the time that he arrives naturally, so I think calling and attacking him now could give us a massive economy boost, and it'll also make the storm a lot easier to manage with the extra impatience. We need a little bit of fabric to get the smokehouse going and start jerky production, so it's time to bring in the nets in this algae pond and start producing it in the crude workstation. Farliff is here. Now this set of stock is much more juicy than Zhorg's earlier. We can use just about every stack of resources here, and even the perks and blueprints are reasonably useful. So let's see what we get. So we lost 4 villagers and gained 3 impatience, along with the usual trading debuffs. But we gained a lot of good stuff. The pipes will let us start using our clearance water much earlier than we'd planned. The purging fire will save us a lot of fuel. 30 tools is a massive amount. We can use that to send some caches to the Citadel. This stack of dye will pretty much get our coats production to the end of the game. The clay is not as useful as the rest of it, but it can still make pottery in the smokehouse, which could have an impact. And the fabric will save us a lot of production time in the long term, given we don't have a recipe for it. And our perk was the +2 to boots production, which is probably the worst one we could have gotten, but it could be useful in the future, given it's a harpy need. The biggest downside of that, though, was that 4 harpies died, which was pretty unlucky. It would have been better to lose our minority populations than the harpy majority. But we have more villagers coming soon, from our order and from newcomers. The biggest short-term bonus of attacking the trader is the instant fabric, which will allow us to make the warehouse right away and start gathering this stone. By deleting some of our woodcutter camps, we'll have enough parts for 3 stonecutter camps, which will take maximum advantage of the Marshlands biome bonus to gathering speed. The fabric also lets us make our smokehouse and clothier right away. Starting production of jerky and coats should let us earn some reputation from our harpies next year. The clothier is also a harpy comfort building, and it uses clearance water, so with a rain engine it will be a massive resolve boost. Our biscuit trader is complete, which completes our amber trade order for 2 extra villages. The smokehouse is up and running, so we're ready to start making jerky, but we're doing 1 quick cycle of incense, which will let us start working on this altar of decay during the storm. No problem surviving this storm, thanks to our high impatience from attacking the trader. We now have enough incense to sacrifice a villager and start working on this altar of decay. Our first group of newcomers is here. As much as I'd like to take another harpy, I think the extra workforce is more important here. Sacrificing a lot of villagers has caused labour to be our biggest bottleneck. Time for a cornerstone. Secure perimeter doesn't seem like a good option. We're not likely to complete a forbidden event anytime soon, and we haven't even opened that many glades. So this is why we saved our reroll, but we also earned 2 wildfire essence from our order, which means we can afford to get an extra option without sacrificing getting a second hearth. Borrowed time is not that useful either. It's only good if we're close to losing the game and if we have spare amber, so we'll definitely reroll. Frequent caravans is not great. Seeing as we just attacked a trader, we're not going to be focusing on trade very much this game. But Smuggler's Visit is pretty good. We get to pick 1 blueprint from the entire pool, which is definitely better than declining. Before we pick our blueprint, let's take a look at our orders. Happy Harpies shouldn't be too hard to do. We can definitely keep their resolve high enough with our rain engines. We don't have the planks right now for the aesthetic decorations, but it's not too hard to get. The rewards for it, though, are fairly underwhelming. The other option is burning 16 cysts. It does get us 3 villages, which would be pretty good, but I think it's going to be way too hard to complete this year, so I think we'll go for the easier to complete order to get another blueprint. We don't have the recipe for luxury goods right now, but we do have the smuggled blueprint that would let us choose one right away. We can also fairly easily make training gear that could be put into luxury goods. The 4 villages are good as a reward, but the 15 amber and +2 to flour is not great. The alternative is delivering oil and flour, which is far more difficult. We would need to specifically pick out a blueprint that gives us an oil recipe, and we don't even have inputs for it. And while the rewards are slightly better, I don't think it's worth the effort. So, knowing that we need planks for the aesthetic decorations and luxury goods, I think there's quite an obvious choice from our wild blueprint. The carpenter gives us both the planks and the luxury goods recipes, and we even get the tools recipe to get some more reputation points from caches. We need 8 planks to set up this carpenter, which will take a lot of time in the crude workstation, or it would if we didn't have a little trick that we could use. We can delete this garden, which will temporarily lower our hearth's level to get 8 planks back, and then rebuild it later with the more efficient planks from the carpenter. This year is going smoothly, but also quite slowly, given we have such a low population. We're about to pick up 4 new villages though from our luxury goods order, so I think now's a good time to head into our second Dangerous Glade. We're mostly looking for caches that we can send, and events that give us reputation at this point. We can start thinking about preparing next year's resolve push by opening this cache later this year to get the pies and paste out. And building this tavern will also help with the resolve push, giving everyone +3 resolve, and also giving humans a comfortable workplace. We got exactly what we wanted in this glade. There's a medium cache that we can send to the Citadel for a little bit of wrap. We could open it for pickle goods for our beavers, but the beavers are so far away from the threshold I don't think it's worth it. So we'll definitely use our tools surplus to send it off. And then we have the escaped convicts event that will destroy 3 caches if we don't solve it, but that won't be a problem because we can simply use our stone surplus to arrest them and get some quick wrap. It was perfect timing as well. We just depleted our stone nodes, so we have 4 idle villages ready to work on those events. Our Year 2 orders are complete, giving us 4 extra villages, and also 2 new blueprints. The press doesn't seem like a good option. We don't have any inputs for 3-star oil, nor any good use for it. So I think even though we already have a service building, the temple is still a pretty good choice. We have the means of making incense for religion, and if we find a scrolls recipe for education, then that'll hit both harpies and beavers. Well, there is our scrolls recipe. The weaver is a good option as well for the boots, but fulfilling the education need is much more impactful. So it would be good to be able to build both service buildings before the end of the year, but the temple definitely moves up the priority list now that we have the scrolls. Both buildings require bricks, which means we'll probably need to set up the stamping mill as well. Thankfully, we just got 4 new villages to do all of these jobs. There's a lot to do before next year's resolve push. We've also generated a fair bit of blight rot this year with our liberal rain engine use, so we'll need to set up a blight post to deal with it, but earlier on we stole some purging fire from Firelove, so it won't be too big a problem to manage. it should be a pretty easy storm to manage at hostility 0, so we can definitely accept some newcomers. Unlike earlier, I think it's better now to take 2 harpies over 3 non-harpies, just because they're so much easier to gain reputation from. And they also bring planks, which helps speed up our service buildings. After a very quiet storm, we have a new cornerstone. We're probably not going to build a second hearth based on our population, so we could use some wildfire essence to get an extra choice here, because exploration contract is clearly not so good for us. However, traders are willing to return to our settlement now, so I think holding onto our wildfire essence for trading and just declining for 8 amber might just be better. We also have orders. We are 2 harpies short of being able to instantly claim this first order, so it's probably doable by the end of the year, but we have an even easier order to complete here. We already have 21 villages with the coats need fulfilled, so this should be very straightforward. We have a second opportunity to take a timed order here. We would have to deliver 100 coal, which seems very unlikely at this late stage, to double the goods produced in the mine, which we aren't using, and get some jerky and parts. We're really just looking for orders that are easy to complete now, so I think we'll just ignore that one. There's no guarantee we'll find any Glade events with the empathy decisions, so the easy choice here is aesthetics. It's very plank expensive to make these decorations, but we can always delete them afterwards to get it back. We also earned a blueprint from High Resolve during the storm. I think we already have all the buildings we need, so I don't really want to waste any amber rerolling. Of these 2 options, the apothecary is clearly better than the plantation. We may not end up building it, but there's a chance at least that we can find a treatment service building to use the tea in, so it has some potential. I think we should head into this Dangerous Glade next. We're still mainly looking for ways to gain fast reputation points, and we still have a lot of tools lying around to send off some caches if we find them. Now that traders are willing to return to the settlement, we'll start calling them fairly aggressively, looking for goods that could help us end the game faster. We have an interesting Dangerous Glade. We have yet another Altar of Decay. I think that's the 5th one in this cycle alone. We can ignore the threat, as it won't trigger until after the next storm, and the rewards aren't meaningful enough to invest any time in. We did find a cache though, which we can send to the Citadel. And there's also a ruined grill. We could rebuild it for the skewers, paste, and copper bars recipes, but in this case, salvaging it is clearly the best option. It gets us some ale that we can use in the tavern for our beavers and humans, as well as some extra jerky in case the harpies run out. Our trader also arrived. He has a lot of complex food for us, but we have an order that brings in biscuits very soon, and we're bringing in paste at the moment from the cache. So the only one that's really impactful is the pickle goods, which we will buy his whole stock of. The aesthetics decorations are done, giving us the biscuits we wanted, earning us another blueprint. The distillery gives us ale and pickle goods, but we don't really have inputs for the ale, and we just bought enough pickle goods to last us for the rest of the game. It's still more useful than the furnace's recipes though, so we'll just take it. Now that the aesthetics order is done, we can delete these gardens, giving us enough planks back to build our tavern. We have fulfilled the need for coats, completing another order, and earning another blueprint. Neither of these service buildings hit any needs that we don't already fulfill, so I think the Monastery is the best option, just because it's a human comfort building, and its passive effect to reduce hostility may come in handy during the storm. We've also called another trader.
Hi.
She doesn't have any completed goods that we want, but we can pick up some inputs for incense and ale, which we can make in the distillery that we picked recently. I think we're a couple of points away from being able to win this year, so we'll go for one more Dangerous Glade, looking for another cache to use our tools on, and maybe another reputation gaining event. There is some potential in this Dangerous Glade. We have a large cache, but we don't have the tools to send it off yet. We do have the means of producing them though in the Carpenter. There's also a ruined furnace. It's too late in the game to consider rebuilding it, but salvaging it for pie and some sea marrow for faster Glade event work speed is an interesting option, because our Dangerous Glade event is the open vault. We don't need to worry about the threat because we should be able to end the game before it triggers, but we do have this interesting option of burying the entrance, which will afflict our woodcutters and gatherers with -16 resolve and cost a lot of building materials to gain a bit more rep. The tricky part here is that we actually need our woodcutters at the moment. We need wood to make tools to send the cache, and we also need fuel to make purging fire, as we will definitely have a blight rot problem this year. There are some ways around both of those problems though. To get the planks that we need to make the tools, we can delete some of our old buildings that we aren't using anymore. And the sea marrow from the furnace is a much more efficient fuel source to use in the purging fire recipe. So I think there is a path to win this game before the end of the year. So far so good, but we need to start work on this open vault now so that we can complete it before the end of the storm. We can leave the woodcutters on for a little while to tank the penalty and bring in a little more wood, but we do want to minimize that to maximize our reputation gain. We have another group of newcomers. Both groups have 4 villagers, so we'll take this one that brings us a little bit more fuel. So I think we're on the home stretch now. I'm still not sure how the storm will play out, but we'll see shortly. So let's recap. We started out with some rough blueprints in year 1, and our solitary cornerstone option was no good either. To make the best of the bad situation, we tried to harness the +3 to mushrooms drizzle mystery. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but shortly after that we found the smokehouse with its 3-star jerky recipe, making all of those mushrooms pretty useless. Luckily though, we got some very easy orders, which helped us find some better blueprints pretty early. It's hard to judge if attacking the trader sped our game up or not. Losing 4 villagers hurt our reputation gain speed by quite a bit, but the free pipes, fabric and tools probably compensated for that. The villagers we lost are also decreasing our hostility quite a bit now, thanks to the Altar of Decay, so in the end I think it probably was the correct decision. The smuggler's visit turned out to be the ideal cornerstone for us in year 2, so saving our wildfire essence and reroll for it paid off. The carpenter blueprint that we got from it has now earned us a lot of reputation, between fulfilling the luxury goods order, producing planks for our service buildings, and now supplying the tools to open our caches. And the last big contributor to the game are the 4 Dangerous Glades we opened. Each one had at least a couple of useful events in it, which has helped us earn a lot of reputation in a hurry. The last glade in particular presented some problems, but also gave us the perfect solutions for them. I think we ended up with a pretty ideal species mix for the Monastery of the Holy Flame modifier. The 2 high base resolve species, combined with the fast reputation gain of the Harpies, have made this hard modifier much easier than I expected. So thank you for watching, and let's see how the rest of this year plays out.